If you listen closely to the stones of Paris in the year 1800, you can still hear the echoes of the scream. Just 6 years ago, this square was the altar of the revolution. It was soaked in blood. Here stood the towering machine that defined an era. The guillotine. The king, the queen, and thousands of citizens, aristocrats and bakers alike, were fed to its blade while roaring crowds cheered for liberty. The sound of the falling blade was the heartbeat of the city. But now, in the opening months of 1800, the machine is gone. The crowds have dispersed. The frenzied energy of the terror has burned itself out, leaving behind a city that is exhausted, scarred, and deeply cynical. Paris is holding its breath, waiting for the next disaster. Paris today is known as the City of Light, but the Paris of 1800 was a city of long shadows and deep secrets. It was a metropolis waiting for a savior, or perhaps a dictator. Today, on Frames of World History, we step through the portal into that brief, frozen moment of silence before the rise of an empire. To walk in Paris in 1800 was an assault on the senses. Despite the grand ideals of liberté, égalité, and fraternité, the physical reality of the city remained medieval and broken. There were almost no sewers. The center of the streets was a gutter where chamber pots were emptied daily. When it rained, the streets turned into impassable rivers of black sludge, forcing pedestrians to huddle in doorways. The smell was legendary, a mixture of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and decaying waste that clung to your clothes for days. The physical scars of the last decade were visible on every corner. You would walk past ancient churches that had been stripped of their altars, their stained glass smashed, now repurposed as grain warehouses or stables for cavalry horses. The grand statues of kings on the facade of Notre Dame had been decapitated by angry mobs who mistook the biblical figures for French monarchs. The city felt desecrated, its history violently erased. The economy was in ruins. The paper money printed by the revolutionary government was worthless. People used it to light fires. For the common person, the grand promises of the revolution had amounted to little more than hunger, fear, and cold winters. They were tired of politics. They were tired of slogans. They just wanted bread and order. Yet amidst the gloom, life was furiously returning in bizarre ways. A new generation, survivors of the guillotine years, decided to dance on the volcano. They held victims' balls, where you could only enter if a relative had been executed. They dressed in wild, extravagant fashions, mocking the grim austerity of the revolutionaries who came before them. Paris was schizophrenic, half starving and desperate, half manic and desperate to party like there was no tomorrow, because for a decade there often wasn't. But the chaos was about to end. Just months before the turn of the century, a bloodless coup d'etat had overthrown the ineffective, corrupt government. A new regime was established, led by 3 consuls. But everyone in Paris knew only one of them mattered. We know him from paintings that depict him as a demigod on a rearing horse. But history is not paint. In 1800, Napoleon Bonaparte was not yet emperor. He was a 30-year-old Corsican general who had just seized power in a country desperate for stability. Look closely. This is the true face of the man who took a city addicted to revolution and forced it to heal. Look at the eyes. They are startlingly intense, calculating, and cold. These are not the eyes of a romantic dreamer, but an artillery officer, an engineer of power. In 1800, he is working 18 hours a day, rewriting the laws, reorganizing the finances, and personally approving everything from army supplies to street lamp designs. He is a man in a terrifying hurry. He knows that his hold on power is fragile. He needs to prove to the exhausted Parisians that he alone stands between them and the return of the terror or the return of the hated Bourbon kings. He is buying their loyalty with efficiency. He is trading their liberty for order. Under the first consul, Paris began its great transformation from a medieval labyrinth into an imperial capital. Bonaparte didn't want to just rebuild Paris. He wanted to eclipse Rome. He envisioned a city of marble and monumental vistas that reflected his own glory. The Louvre was opening to the public, but it was filled with stolen goods. Its halls were rapidly filling with the treasures looted by Napoleon's armies across Europe. The art of Italy, the Netherlands, and Germany flowed into Paris as trophies of war. It was a clear statement. Paris was now the undisputed center of the Western world, the new Rome to which all wealth must flow. On the streets, the change was tangible. He ordered the mud cleared. He established a new, ruthless professional police force to sweep away the criminals who had thrived during the anarchy. The message branded onto the city was clear. The revolution is over. The era of administration has begun. Gold returned to the salons, replacing the rusted iron of the revolution. Silk returned to the bodies of the elite. The silence of 1800 was the sound of a society taking a deep breath, realizing they had survived the storm and preparing for whatever this intense young general had planned for them next. Paris in 1800 is a singular, frozen moment in time, a fragile equilibrium caught between the memory of unimaginable terror and the promise of unimaginable glory. The people walking these muddy streets, just grateful for a quiet day, do not know what is coming. They do not know that within 4 years, their first consul will crown himself emperor. They do not know that a generation of young Frenchmen will soon march out of this city to die on battlefields from Madrid to Moscow. For now, in this frozen moment, there is just relief. The portal is closing. History moves fast, and the peace of 1800 will not last long. If you want to join us for the next jump through time, subscribe to Frames of World History and ring the bell. Until then, keep watching the past.